Hey community, Erin Jones. I am going to try to do a shorter version of a video that I recorded about race and why I specifically talk about race and why I find it interesting that people, especially white people, get offended when Black and brown folks talk about race in ways they don't get offended when folks talk about gender or religious affiliation. So I've been posting a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion for the last week and a half because of all the stuff that's happening at the national level and because this is work that I have been doing for a long time. I inhabit many identities, like most of you. I inhabit more than one identity. All of us inhabit more than one identity. And so I had a Black father as a biological father, white mother. I was abandoned in a hospital, adopted by two white, like northern Minnesota Scandinavians who started me off in a small town in Minnesota, but chose to raise me in the Netherlands, where I was surrounded by children from all over the world. So at my school were kids from Israel and kids from Palestine, kids from Egypt and Lebanon, Syria, Brazil, Japan, literally all over the world. I was an athlete and a musician. I spoke 4 languages by the time I graduated from high school. I have been navigating multiple spaces for a really long time. And since I was a little girl, I've always wanted to be a bridge builder and a peacemaker. And that doesn't always mean that you're nice, but I do believe it means you seek to be kind. And so my intention is always to seek to be kind. I know that I will forever be a learner. Even though I am a teacher, I believe I have to first be a learner. And so I don't claim to be the authority on any of this DEI stuff. I did not go get a graduate degree in this. I feel like I have a graduate degree in life as a person who's had to navigate a lot of spaces and who's lived in other countries and just navigate so many different identities. My husband is a Black man. My parents are white. So I've had to navigate issues around race and culture. Now, what do I mean when I say race? The word race to me is the stories that we tell about skin color. It is a created thing. It's a social construct. I absolutely agree with that. And there are quite a large swath of, especially white folks, but also some Black and brown folks who think if we just stop talking about race, those stories will magically go away. That's just not, I don't believe that. I don't believe that by just eliminating any conversation about race, 400 years of stories in this country will just disappear. Even though right now, most people, when they talk about race, although I would argue in the last year, there are a lot of people that are explicitly saying things about race that are super negative and targeted. But for the most part, when folks in America today talk about race, it's usually not applied to legislation. But if you look back at the history of this country, why were the stories of race so powerful? Because they were built into legislation. They were built into who was allowed to vote. They were built into who was allowed to go to school, who was allowed to go to which school, who was allowed to go to which church, who was allowed to live in which community. And so even though those things happened in our past, those realities of race-based legislation have had huge implications for how we move through the world right now in 2025. My mother-in-law, her family was redlined. They were impacted by where Black people were allowed to live, by where they could get loans for homes. And she just passed away 7 weeks ago. So this stuff is not so far in the past that it is not impacting people who are alive today. I made a post the other day using a video and an article by a gentleman named Jacob Ward. If you don't know Jacob Ward, he is a tech news broadcaster. Well, he was in broadcast news, but now he is a consultant. He does some really powerful work around tech and conversations about AI. What I just learned about him, though, last week is he's married to a Black woman. And he decided to do a video in light of all the anti-DEI conversations that are happening right now about his own journey of thinking and talking about race. And he said he thought because he was married to a black woman that he was unbiased, that he didn't have issues around race. The stories that he had in his head around black people were innocuous. They were positive. He was married to a black woman, so he knew better. And he ended up becoming part of this project. And I don't remember how long ago this was, but he was part of a project to demonstrate that all people have imbibed, they've taken in biases just by living in this country and consuming media and consuming stories about people. And he realized really quickly, and as part of this project, that even he, a white guy married to a black woman, had biases. And it was a really powerful, very transparent conversation he had with us on TikTok. And so I used that video and then found the written article and posted it on my Facebook page, Aaron Jones 2016, last week. And one of the things I said in my lead in to the article was, I really want to encourage, especially my white friends, to read this. And then the next sentence was, no, actually, I want to encourage all of you because we can all learn something. I had someone reach out to me on Facebook in a really lengthy message. And I'm so appreciative of this person. It took a lot of courage. There's someone who's heard me speak at a conference and has been following me for many months now, and said, it feels to me as a white guy that when you bring up race, and I don't know that he said white guy, but I heard that in my head. He said, it feels to me like bringing up race is divisive. And I don't understand. It feels like if we stop talking about race, racism would go away. Now, the reason I'm doing this video is because I have been hearing this a whole lot in the last 8 years, that anybody who brings up race is divisive. Bringing up race naturally divides people because it points out our difference and not our common grounds. And I absolutely disagree. And I want to offer this as just a thought experiment. On my Facebook page and on TikTok, I will at times mention I'm a Jesus follower and this particular post is for my Jesus follower friends. And not one time has anyone ever said, Aaron, why did you specifically target Jesus followers? Why didn't you just write the post to everyone? Because my intention was to talk to people who had that particular thing in common. Now, I welcome anybody else to read the article or to listen to the TikTok video, but I am specifically asking that part of my identity group to join me in a conversation, because that's the thing that we have in common as we follow Jesus. And not one person has ever said, why do you call that out? When I have done posts about menopause, which I am fortunately through now, but if I were to say to my fellow sisters in their 40s and 50s and 60s, not one person has said, why did you speak specifically to women? Because there is already an understanding that there are things that female bodies experience that male bodies don't experience. And so nobody has ever questioned me on that. But when it comes to race, suddenly that is a problem. And I just want to encourage folks to think about why that is. And I'll end with this thought. My parents are two Scandinavian folks from northern Minnesota. And one of the things I learned about their culture by being in their home and by being around their family members, and then spending a lot of time in white spaces with people who are culturally a lot like them. There's not one white culture, but there are elements of culture that are common across different people with pale skin, especially Northern European folks of that heritage. What I learned is you don't talk about 5 things. In mixed company, you don't talk about race, you don't talk about gender, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, and you don't talk about money. Those 5 things are off the table in mixed company. And do you know what I realized when I got out into the broader world? We suck at talking about those things because we haven't had practice talking about those things in mixed company. And so we have all these ideas. Poor people have all these ideas about rich people. Rich people have all these ideas about poor people. Christian people have all these ideas about Muslim people. Right? You see that? And because we don't talk in mixed company, we don't realize that we actually have a lot in common because we're humans. But as soon as we see those labels, instead of pushing into the labels and saying, okay, tell me more about who you are, Muslim person. For me, a label has never stopped me from getting curious about someone. But I think for so many people it does. And so my invitation to all of us on all the things, whether it's race or gender, transgender, religion, politics, I want to encourage all of us. I believe our only way forward is to get curious about one another and to not allow labels to divide us. But the only way that we don't allow labels to divide us is to get curious when we hear a label and to not say, oh my gosh, they just put a label. Yeah, we all label in all different kinds of ways. I am tall. If you saw my mom and I together, you would say, I am tall, she is short. Acknowledging that, seeing that is not the problem, unless you think that only amazing people are short. Like only short people can be amazing. If you think that, then yeah, identifying black or tall and short is a bad thing. If in your mind you think only white people can be smart, only white people are accomplished, then yeah, it's a problem then to identify race. But if it is just an adjective that helps you maybe get a little insight into someone's lived experience, instead of getting offended or uncomfortable, push in and get curious. I really think curiosity is our only way forward. Okay, that's what I got, y'all. Have a really great day.